Hey guys, Sam with Scrappy Industries. Back on Tiny's BMW project. You guys may have seen the video called Dieselgas 2023 where she made the mistake of putting gasoline in her diesel-powered car. There are a lot of concerns about the CP4. Will it live? Will it explode? Who knows? So far, this thing has run flawless. I believe she's only driven it like 2,500 miles or something since that happened because she's been scared to death of the pump. So, our friends at Area Diesel, we got a new CP4 off of them, much cheaper than buying it through BMW. I believe BMW quoted it at $1,500. Curtis was able to get it somewhere in the $1,100–1,200 range. I forget what it came out to, somewhere in there. So, I bought that CP4 off him. We're going to go ahead and put it in. A friend of ours, he works for the BMW dealer, and he was able to get me the actual tools, the BMW instructions, so this is more legit than most operations. I'm kind of going to take this on as a challenge. If we can beat the book time, if we can skip some steps, they want you to take the intake manifold off. Looking at it, I hope we can do without that. He told me that they do. There's an extra support bracket that kind of backs up the back of the pump, and that bracket has a bolt at the top, and I think that is what's going to be covered up by the intake manifold. So let's dig into it and we'll find out. This guy comes off and it just pulls out of there. Take that off. There's one bolt up top here and this one hose clamp and a plug, and the whole air cleaner, air intake assembly comes off, and then we have this foam pad here. Those clips up top there. Pull our foam pad out. Back to the ever popular fuel rail here where we did all our bleeding on the last time. And this guy will slip out of here. And down here, you can see our high pressure fuel pump. That's the bolt I was worried about taking out. It really doesn't look bad. And a bolt at the top and a bolt at the bottom go into the rear gear housing. Then we have to reach through from the back side, and there's a tool that supports the sprocket while we take the pump out, and then there's also a nut we have to take off that holds the sprocket onto the pump. This is the new pump, just to show you what it looks like. This is a genuine Bosch unit. Area Diesel is a master distributor of Bosch fuel injection components. There's this bolt holds it onto the timing case at the top. This one at the bottom. This is where that bracket is mounted off of. We have our low pressure inlet and outlet fittings here, and then our high pressure outlet here, as well as the backside. This is the pump control plug here. Whatever magic is happening with the fuel control happens here. If you take this out, my understanding is there's a screen in there. You can check if the pump is starting to come apart. You pull these two torque screws out, pull that control dude out, and there's a screen where you can see if there's any fine particles or anything starting to collect on the pump. To seal it, we have this O-ring where it goes into the timing cover, so we don't have any gasket or anything to worry about there. It is timed and keyed to the pump. So the book's telling you to put the engine on number 1 top dead center, but there's really no need to do that because we have a keyway already. So as long as we pull it out, and then we're going to turn the engine over or turn the pump over so the key lines up with where the key little pin is in the gear, then we'll put it back together. So just trying to get an eye on things here. It all looks the same. This is our high pressure line coming out of this side of the pump. This is the other high pressure line that comes out of the second head on the back side. Then we have the low pressure lines here and here. And we also have the gear that comes in from the back side of the engine. That is going to be the worst part of this from what I can tell. This is our special tool we have to use to hold the sprocket in the back, and it's kind of a two-piece ordeal. There's a cover that comes off the back of the timing cover, and then we use this tool. You put a wrench here, and this threads into the gear. These threads are actually going into the timing gear that's on the pump, and as that threads in, this pushes out. Then this is out of the way. We reach in there, take the nut off the end of the pump that's holding the sprocket to the pump itself. This stays in there the whole time while we pull the pump out. Otherwise, the tensioner on the timing chain would basically sling that thing down out of the way. So this has to be there to hold that gear where we need it while we take the old pump out, put the new pump back in, put the nut back on, and then finally we take this out at the very end of the job. So my only complaint about the nice fancy BMW destructions here is, why can't they tell you what size socket when they're telling you to take the bolts out? I mean, like, what extra time does that take to save you, especially these ones that are on the back side? Like, this is our cover on the back of the timing cover. We have to unscrew that out. But basically, you just got to keep reaching around, feeling it, trying 98 sockets to get it right. If you do this every day, I guess you'd know, but you still think you'd make a tech's life a lot easier by giving socket sizes. Come on. All right. Try number one. Man, this is going to be relatively awful to reach this whole back of the timing cover. How many things am I going to drop? That is the real question. Decent bit bigger than a 14 millimeter. Let's try an 18 millimeter. Smaller than that. Oh my goodness, it actually went in the hole. I don't think that was right though. 17. Appears to be 17. Hopefully we can get a ratchet wrench on that. If this was a front pump, I don't think this would be a bad job. But this whole working behind the engine thing is awesome. We'll get it. All right, I got it turned enough with the ratchet wrench. Get it loose. All right, so that's out. 17 millimeter. Take this little cover off. Before I put the lock in, I want to see if we can figure out which socket we need to take the pump nut off. Told me a E-Torx, which I've had this kit with Torx and E-Torx. Don't think I've ever used an E-Torx in my life. It's kind of grabbing, but I think this is too big. Try smaller. Okay, that seems to be grabbing pretty well. That is our E16 E-Torx. That's going to be the actual pump nut. So what we have going on here, just to kind of check things out, this is going to go in this tool here. We reach back, we thread this into the sprocket, and that holds the sprocket. This stays in there. Then we take our E16, reach that inside this tool, and take the nut off that's actually holding the pump gear on. So one thing I'm not super sure of is how we break this taper free off the pump drive, because we're going to have this here. This is what's taking the bolt off, I guess, that's actually threaded into this internal thread here. So we're taking a bolt off that's holding the sprocket on here, but this is a taper, and that bolt's tightened pretty tight, so somehow we have to basically get this taper driven out. I don't know, maybe we loosen the bolt, and if we can, and there's like no room to tap on the thing. Well, maybe the bolt, you know what, I bet what happens is the bolt hits this. I wouldn't be surprised if the bolt stays trapped. This is screwed in. It could actually use the bolt to push off of here maybe, and that pushes the pump out of the sprocket. Don't know. It pretty much said take it off in the instructions from what I saw. We'll figure that out. I'm going to start with this because this stuff is not fun at all to play with back in the back, and we're pretty close. So next step, I'm going to screw this tool in, and we're going to try to break that pump free. All right, so we're going to put the sprocket holder tool 9000 in here. You know what? I didn't figure out what size wrench I need. Let's do that. All right, so this is just your good old-fashioned 13 millimeter on that hex. This screws in here to the pump. Okay, that's tight. And take the little driver part out. Oh crap. Oh man, 2 in a row we got lucky going out that hole. And now the real question is, how do we get this all in there? There's just no room. Okay, I think we're actually on it there. Did it break loose that easy? I'd be amazed if it did. I kind of feel like it had to, though. That was way less effort than I would have expected. Yeah. That's free. Okay, now it just got tight. So I backed that bolt out as much as I could by hand, and I felt it get snug again. I think what that means is the flange of the bolt is up against that tool trying to push the pump out. I haven't taken any of the fuel lines off or taken the mounting brackets off or any of that stuff yet, so we can't shove on the pump yet. It's still bolted to the engine. So let's work on all the stuff on the front, get that all loosened up, and then our next step will back that bolt off. It should break that taper free, the pump from the gear, and get her out. Can't get the ratchet wrench on them all. These are just 13 millimeters on this bracket. I guess these fuel lines are going to have to come off anyway. Might want to move them out of the way and make life a bit easier. Just reach right down. Got it. Oh, no. No! Oh, I can see them both sitting there on the block. Look at that little holder they built in for you. That's so convenient. All right, so this support bracket is now out of the way. We have the high pressure fuel lines, low pressure fuel lines, this one connector over here, and then the 2 mounting bolts you can see back here and one underneath. And we should be wiggling. What are you doing, Yogle? What are you doing? Odie. Hi, buddy. Hi, buddy. All right, so we're taking these low pressure fuel lines off now. And then get them loosened up. We got our high pressure fuel lines here. Crack this guy loose. Turned a little. Come on. There it is. Oh, this is inconvenient though. Okay, spin that guy off. That's off. Obviously we don't want to get dirt in these. Headed straight to the rail and the injectors. Okay, that's off. Definitely need to loosen the other side of this one so we can get them out of the way. So that's both high pressure lines, both low pressure lines, sensor plug. We just have these two mounting bolts at the flange. If we can reach in and get them, we'll see if it's loose at all, and then we probably have to break that taper free to the gear yet. Yeah, I don't think it did bad for what it was. Alright, will the pump be free at all? It must still be on that taper because it is pretty tight. Everything's out. I can reach back in there with our e-torques and see if I can back that bolt out a little bit further, if that is all we need to do to get it out of there. I think something just came free. Oh yeah, she's wiggling now. Let's unscrew that bolt all the way. Sorry, camera, we're all in the same place. Ugh. There we are. So with the pump off, the bolt is kind of trapped behind the gear and inside that tool. You can see the threads of it there. You can also see the keyway on this gear is down here in like the 8 o'clock position. So we're gonna need to turn the pump or turn the engine over and get those lined up with the new pump. I guess we'll try to wipe the oil out of that taper on the gear, but we're probably not gonna be able to do a whole lot. Clean that face up, nothing's bad. And slap the new pump in. Let's give her a quick little comparison. Make sure we have the right pump on hand. Oh, there's all the fuel. Make sure we have the correct fuel pump. See if there's any obvious differences or problems here. Casting is slightly different, like some of these markings that are there and not there. Let's give her a careful overall look. All right, let's find out what exactly we have going on with this old fuel pump. First thing I'm going to do is pull this valve and check the screen. I think it's a valve. I really don't know what it is. T25 Torx seems to be the size though. This pulled out of there. Grab a little pan we can try to dump this out into. I don't see anything at all stuck on that screen. Looks perfectly clean to me. But apparently this is a good indicator of your pump health. You can easily pull this off while the pump's in the car. Yank this off and check if you're getting anything in that screen. I don't know how much time you have. That's the scary thing to me. Like say you don't find anything in there, you put it back together and you drive it 10,000 miles before you check this again. Is it gonna grenade within 1,000 miles of it starting to shed? I don't know. That looks perfectly fine. Just grab a pan. Fair bit of fuel in this thing. I guess I'm kind of on the fence whether I consider this pump junk or if I consider it a good used part. Honestly, I highly doubt we're gonna find anything wrong with it. The fact that it's still running, I don't think we're gonna see any issues. I'm not sure exactly what the failure is. I kind of think it's on the rollers of the plunger down on the cam part. I don't know that it's in the fuel. I'm not sure of that. Could also be on the plunger. I think we basically have a plunger and a barrel just like you do in an old school injection pump. We just have two of them. So I'm gonna pull these top Torx bolts off. Well, I don't know. I don't really know what we're getting into here. I don't know what's behind this E-Torx. There might be like a check valve, like a delivery valve of sorts in behind that. And this is holding everything over top of the plunger. So at this point, I kind of feel like, hey, we got nothing to lose. Let's tear into it and see what we find. Well, let's start with taking these off. So I hope there's not any massive spring for it to be wearing this thing. So I've pulled the delivery valve out. I assume we're going to call this delivery valve. That's what you call it on a regular old school injection pump. This looks like a check valve. It was in the top. I got that yanked out. Now I'm going to pull this head part off the top. There's a definite spring pressure pushing on this. I think we've just about unloaded it. I'm going to take two out that are opposite each other. Must be a pretty strong spring. How far do these let us come out? I'm not there yet. Okay, there I can overcome the spring force there, so it's not too bad. Okay. So here is sort of the inner workings of this high pressure fuel pump. That's the spring we were compressing against. Its whole point is just to push this plunger back down. Not sure what all we can see there as far as like a cam follower. This is the plunger. Appears to be in perfectly good shape. It rides inside of the barrel. So this is kind of similar really to a standard inline mechanical injection pump. That's just constantly pumping like that. And then the delivery valve or check valve goes in from the top here. That's what captures the fuel, basically keeps the fuel from coming back from the rail into the pump, keeps it on a one-way path out of the pump. This is where the spring rides against this to push the plunger back down. That's the difficulty in turning the camshaft on this, is you're having to overcome those two springs. There's our cam follower. You can see that's the roller that's riding against that camshaft down on the bottom. Again, the camshaft and the follower here, the roller, look to be in perfect shape to me. I don't see anything at all wrong with them. And this is where I'm at on the amount of time that this thing was run with gasoline. I really just do not see how it could have hurt anything, because Sure, this stuff needs the lubrication of diesel fuel. This is moving up and down inside there, but it didn't run a minute with all that gas in there, so kind of not to my surprise, this all looks to be perfectly fine. I would have to say I don't think there was really any need at all to change this pump. But Tiny's peace of mind was the main driver. She had convinced herself that it was gonna grenade. I've never had one of these pumps apart, so I was really kind of curious to see overall what it looked like. You can see down in that bore a little bit of wear showing where that plunger rides inside the bore. I think, but I could be wrong, but I kind of think that's where these fail, is this starts scoring the side. And of course, not having the full lubrication it should have, it's possible that that would start scoring. But a couple people mentioned in the comments, and I don't know this, but on a high pressure gasoline injection, like a direct inject, like an EcoBoost, something like that, apparently they have a similar high pressure fuel pump. I don't think they're running at the 30 to 40,000 PSI of rail pressure that a diesel is, but I could be wrong. As far as how different the design is, I really don't know that answer. I guess you just want to lubricate this back up with diesel, reassemble it. I don't know if I want to try to sell this pump, what we want to do with it. I don't think there is a thing in the world wrong with it. That's kind of my take. These flat face channel lock Irwin Knips knockoff thingamabobs. Looks like we can grab this flat spot here, not tear anything up. Let's see if we can turn the pump. There we go. We got to get the key in the same place as the old pump, which is more or less pointed down at this nubbins here. There we go. We got the pump oriented the same as the old one. I like how they have this nice machine like taper to help the bolt start in there. Lube up this O-ring a little bit with some fresh motor oil. We're ready to go back on. Let's wipe her down. Very gently cleaning. Don't want to scratch the aluminum to death. There's really just that one spot I was concerned of. Oh, good. Wiped off. And let's send it. Okay, I'm going to start tightening the pump gear bolt in just by hand on this E-torque socket. That way we'll make sure the keyway's in, that everything's good and flush. I'm pretty confident that the key is in right now, but we'll just kind of get it all snugged up by hand and be very careful of that. Alright, we're just going to snug these bolts up because I am concerned if we're driving the bolt into the tool for the gear. So I'm going to snug these up and then we're going to keep snugging that up. Then we'll come back, torque these, and torque that main gear bolt. That's the plan anyhow. Those are on, but I leave it back here. That would be bad. That's what I did though. Okay, so it's now snug. So it's not in the way at all. 19 Newton meters is the torque spec on these pump drive bolts. On the pump mount bolts, I guess I mean to say. And then that back one is 65 Newton meters. And I'm being told, good luck. Really hoping I can fit this guy down in there on the back side. You guys are never gonna be able to see down in there with me, so I'll put the camera up here and you can see the struggle. I think old torque wrench is just too long. They show you using like 45 extensions going backward. All right. I think that's plenty tight. I'm gonna give torquing this one more try. The old dusty click type wrench is about the same length as that ratchet that was working well. My electric 3/8 drive, you can see, is just too long. It won't fit in there. So let's try to do our 65 Newton meters with the click type. We can sleep at night. Told me that a guy at the dealer actually had one of these bolts come loose on him. So it quit driving. It didn't really hurt anything though. I don't know how that key wouldn't just wreck the shaft of the pump if nothing else, because if that comes off and starts slipping on there, then you got to get the gear back. I can see bad things happening very fast. So let's not have that happen. Try to get a proper torque from a never calibrated torque wrench. Might make us sleep at night. Why is that one ratchet the only perfect Goldilocks tool that'll fit down in here? Trying to give this thing the endo. It is what it is. Let's get the tool removed now that the pump's bolted back in there properly. Don't you fall out of there, girl. Handy dandy cover goes back on. Okay, we're done back there. Thankfully, that should be it for everything standing on our head. Let's hook everything up back on the front side of the pump. Our fuel hoses here, the inlet and outlet, on this pump they're marked in the back, but I think more than anything they still go the same orientation. They didn't flip locations or anything like that. This might prove to be fun. There we go. And she started on the back high pressure line. That on. We have this plug, a little control on the pump. That up. Tighten that stuff up. Alrighty. It's Mrs. Smilonium.
Did you break it yet?
I didn't break it, you break it.
Did you fix it yet?
New pump's in.
Is it really?
Mm-hmm. I'm hooking up the hose clamps right now. There's this little support bracket dealio.
This is a common rail.
You're so smart.
I learned that at Scrappy. Do you know what you're doing?
Yeah, enough.
Not that that would stop you.
Enough.
It'd be
When has it ever stopped me before?
I will say this is the greatest car ever. 5 years old, been perfect till some dumb person put the wrong gas in it.
It still didn't mess up.
Well, why don't you
All right,
delete
time.
it?
Let's bleed the diesel gas and see if this thing starts.
Okay.
We gotta rip your back seat out. I'm gonna wash my hands. Just gonna rip that out of there. All right, so I think we can not have to unbolt the seat belts for what we're making happening. Got the heat nanny module unplugged. I'm gonna rig up our handy dandy jump pack fuel primer 9000 just like we did on the diesel gas episode. So I've connected the high pressure lines from the pump up to the common rail. That's all tight. I took the injector line going to injector number 1, took that off, flipped it up, put it in our handy dandy little Folgers cup here. I'm gonna fire up the jump pack and let's prime this with a low pressure fuel pump. You can hear all the air coming through. There's some good clean looking fuel. Keep pushing it a little bit more. Look all that good. Loosen this up. Spin this back down here to the number 1 injector. I'm gonna leave just this one just a little bit loose. I'm gonna bump the jump pack again, just burp out any remaining air. Alrighty. I'm gonna leave the top covers and everything off so we can keep an eye on everything while we try this. I think I'm gonna put the air intake piece back on because I'm assuming that's like a intake air temperature sensor, that plug that's in the top back. I'm gonna stick that on kind of temporary, plug that in, just don't wanna throw any codes, make the computer mad. And that's on. Let's give her a quick little whirl. A little bit of cranking, not too bad. I don't see any leaks up here. Kind of hard to tell exactly what you have going on back there. But I don't see anything sticking out real bad. Well guys, thanks for following along. I would call this a very successful mission. Priming it still caused a little bit of cranking. I'm surprised by that because when we did this the first time, it started right up. So I'm wondering what was dry. Maybe if the pump's not turning, the other side still has fuel in it, which means it still had a little gas in it the first time. I don't know. Not a big deal, but just have to put the covers back on the top of the engine, the sound dampening and that plastic piece, and we're all good to go. We really got to do her up right. Man, that doesn't even just wipe off. And that's the game. So the car's done running. I'm gonna clean up this destruction level of tools, put them away. It's Mom and Schaefer. Hi, big boy. Thanks, Mom. Lunch break. So I'm glad we got to tear this pump apart. Answered some of our questions about A, how does it work? B, is it destroyed or not? This job was not near as bad as I thought it would be. We did this in under 2 hours. The book time on it is about 5. I would say if you've done these a few times, you could get it down way lower than that. Not having to take the intake manifold off and not having to take the fan shroud off, not really sure what the purpose is there. That was awesome. Definitely recommend turning the pump to align it the way we did. And it'd be great if there was a better way to torque that bolt. Unfortunately, I don't have the whole crazy extension universal to another universal. I wouldn't have the exact right tool package to make that happen from the bottom the way they showed it. My buddy told me that at the dealer, they just put a wrench on it and basically do what we did. So I feel confident that I put it on tighter than it was when I took it off. It was looser than I expected it to be. I'm sure you could put Loctite on there just to be double, triple safe. But again, if we have to do this again someday, I think that would make life potentially more miserable. So I chose not to do that. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you learned something here. I know I did. And really, I think that, you know, as more and more engines are going to common rail, really a lot have gone to common rail, but in mine and your dealing with engines, I'm sure that we're going to be seeing more and more common rails as time goes on. Right now, any of the old scrap I have is pre-common rail era, but as time goes on, we're going to have to know how to work on this stuff, have to deal with it more often, so might as well start now. I'm Sam with Scrappy Industries. Thanks for watching.